Hello BookTube, welcome back to another video. My name is Juan. I am just one reader, your favorite Mexican booktuber who reads mostly in English. I am here with a Friday Reads updatey, catch-uppy video. I apologize for the weird Muppet kind of hair. It's just a very weird, awkward, uncomfortable face. In terms of the whole growing out your hair process, which is a thing apparently. Anyway, the last video that I made, I was talking about Rejection, which I had already finished, but I just wanted to bring it up again here because I realized I hadn't quite grasped yet just the scope of this book. Like, this book is clearly amazing and smart, and just all the great things that I said about it last week. But this year, after having finished it, it's dawned on me just how much it's still like making waves. Like, it's still provoking a lot of interesting thoughts and conversations, and just suddenly I just find myself out of nowhere just thinking about certain characters or certain specific bits throughout this book, which is a short story collection. By the way, it's Rejection by Tony Thulathimutte. And there's just something about it that I haven't quite yet understood what it is about this book, that it's still like growing inside me. Anyway, so I just wanted to mention it again because it's a 5-star book. I knew that when I read it. I knew it when I started reading it. This was going to be a 5-star book. It is. But it's still like, it's the gift that keeps on giving. It's the book that keeps on giving. So great stuff. Next up, I read something that it's very on brand for me. It's very Juan. It's a very Juan book. It's, if you know me, if you know the stuff that I like to read on my channel, if you share my reading tastes, or if you just like what I usually like, this is gonna be, I think, a really good recommendation, and that is The House of Silk by Anthony Horowitz. So essentially, this is a Sherlock Holmes story, a novel actually, and it was written by Anthony Horowitz, one of my favorite writers right now, probably my favorite still publishing writer. And he was commissioned by the Arthur Conan Doyle estate to write this Sherlock Holmes novel. I think he's written 2. This was the first one, and it's supposed to be the better one of the 2. The second one is Moriarty, and knowing me, I will probably read it eventually, even though people say that it's not quite up to par with this one. This one is like clearly better, according to what most people say. But anyway, I devoured this in just a couple days, and I'm not a very fast reader. I'm actually quite a slow reader, I think. And I gobbled this up. I just could not stop reading. It was fast-paced, just like Anthony Horowitz always writes these very fast-paced plots, but he never sacrifices the good stuff. He never sacrifices character or ambiance or setting or vibes. He never ever sacrifices the writing, the dialogue. Everything just feels really high quality to my taste, to my liking at least. Who knows, you might find it absolute garbage, but this is just my opinion. But I just thought the plotting was great, the pacing was great rhythm, great dialogue, great character work. I adore Watson and Sherlock and the other secondary characters. But really, we all know that the Sherlock Holmes stories really shine whenever Sherlock and Watson are there, especially Sherlock. So I really, really liked it. I'm not going to tell you what it's about because I think talking about the plot of a Sherlock Holmes novel is just kind of idiotic. I think you read Sherlock Holmes precisely for the mastery of the mystery. That sounds like weird alliteration, but there's a masterful thing about the craft that goes. It's like good stand-up comedy. It has this level of preparation and craft backstage that you get to see on the page, you just realize you don't really realize just how much went into creating this wonderful plotting, and I really appreciate that. So I gave this book 4 stars. It's not my favorite Anthony Horowitz book, but it didn't have to be. It's really, really, really solid. Then I read a couple of disappointments. This one is El Valle de los Lobos, which is a Spanish book. It's the first book in this series of books, Crónicas de la Torre, by Spanish author Laura Gallego García, and she's an author that I've really enjoyed throughout my life. I started reading her books when I was around 14, 15, probably. So I was, a YA reader myself, and these are very much middle grade, like YA, more middle grade than YA, I would say, fantasy. And I just wanted something nice, something funny, something quirky, something whimsical, and I decided to try this out. So like I said, this is El Valle de los Lobos. It's book 1 in Crónicas de la Torre, which is a quartet. And let me tell you, I don't think I will be picking up the second or third or fourth books in this series. This book was just so immature, so underdeveloped, and it just felt undercooked in every possible way, and it has some good elements to it. You can see that this was written by the author Laura Gallego, who was still very young and very immature. So that's, this was one of her first published works. So it makes sense to me that she would feel so immature, because she was, and she was probably very young. I don't even know at what stage in her life she wrote this. But anyway, this just felt very derivative of many things. I don't know if this was unconscious, subconscious, or just outright consciously plagiarizing, or not plagiarizing, but just really derivative of Harry Potter and certain tropes, not just from Harry Potter, very much from Harry Potter, but other series as well. There's just a lot of derivative characters, plots, tropes, ideas, even visual imagery, turn of phrase. Everything feels very much what you would expect from a really immature, almost debut author within the genre. I can forgive those things, and I can understand those things. What I really couldn't really forgive was that she did something with this book that I don't get on board with, which is she delivered a beginning, like the opening of the book. The first act was really good. It was slow, it was character driven, it was introducing the characters, introducing the little world building that is done, and we sort of get to start, but then she just completely goes bonkers, and she just sacrifices all the subtlety, all the nuance, all the good solid pacing that she was building. She just sacrificed all of that and just decided to go full plot heavy action, and it was so boring, and so it just felt completely empty, and I wasn't even focused. I didn't care about anyone or anything. There was so much stuff happening in terms of plot and action sequences and battles and fighting and people dying and stuff and revelations and secrets and mysteries, and I was like, man, but this would be fun if I actually cared about it. But she didn't do like the necessary work that this kind of thing really necessitated. So it just felt rushed in the worst possible way. And in the end, it's just nothing. I mean, if this were the first book that I was reading in my life within the fantasy genre, if I were 12, I would probably be talking really highly about this. But, that's not my reality. So I am giving it 2 stars. I don't think I'm going to continue with the rest of the series, but, if you are a really young reader, or you have some young readers who want to read this kind of typical fantasy, I would say it's very well written. I think that as a writer, she has the chops, and she's a very good storyteller. I was never like focusing in a negative way on the writing on the page. It was very easy to digest. It's beautifully told. There's nothing wrong with the writing itself, like sentence by sentence. I think it flows pretty well. She has a good voice, but yeah, that was a disappointment. The next book that I read was not exactly disappointing, but well, I guess it's all a matter of expectations, isn't it? Because I was expecting the book to be probably like one of my favorite books of the year, which is insane to, put those expectations on any book. But people just love this author, man. People love this author and this story in particular, which is El Ruletista. Again, this is in Spanish. It's a Spanish translation. I actually don't know if it's been translated to English, because it's originally written in Romanian. In Romanian, which is roulette. What the fuck? Ruletistul. I don't know. So this was translated from Romanian, and it's by Romanian author, superstar author, Mircea Cartarescu. And he was really celebrated a couple years ago because of his novel Solenoid, which I've been sort of toying with the idea of, should I attempt to read that novel? It sounds like it could work, but if it doesn't work for me, then it's gonna be like probably one of my most hated books ever. So I don't know. So I wanted to try something shorter first by him, and this is a really short story, and it's about this man who plays Russian roulette, and it's not really about the plot. It's more to do with the thematic content and the format and the structure. There's this kind of dreamlike, slightly surrealistic vibe to it, and there's this kind of meta discussion, I guess. There's a philosophical discussion about art and about fiction, and it intertwines with the story, and it's fine. I liked it. I read it in 20 minutes. I think it took me 20 minutes to read, and it's very short. It's very interesting. It's palatable, it's accessible, there's nothing wrong with it. I did find it a little pretentious, but I know that's more subjective, personal style. I just don't really like things that are poetic and very flowery in their language. That's just not usually what I like. But here, I think it was a little over the top, but it never really irked me or rubbed me the wrong way, So I gave this book 3 stars. I think it's perfectly fine. It just didn't really blow my mind as much as I was expecting it to. And so those are the books that I've finished. Now, the book that I am starting is The Dangers of Smoking in Bed, or the original Spanish title, Los peligros de fumar en la cama. This is by Mariana Enríquez. She's an Argentinian author. I tried reading her book, Nuestra parte de noche, Our Share of Night, and I was liking it, and then I lost my copy of the book at a hospital waiting room, and I never really cared enough to get another copy, so I just never really continued. But I was interested. And so instead of just buying another copy of that book, I decided, okay, I'm gonna try something different from the same author. And this is a short story collection. Again, this is one of my New Year's resolutions, reading more short story collections and in Spanish, so 2 for 2. And this is more my kind of short story than this. This is more poetic, dreamlike, sort of ethereal feeling, very focused on the language and sort of dreamlike. Whereas these are more grounded in reality, I would say, although they are quite insane as well. There's a fantastical, surreal element as well to the stories. They are, well, so far I've only read a couple, but I can tell that I can predict that this collection is going to be more grounded in reality, just with a twist of the ominous, of the unknown, and the ominous, which is really the perfect way to describe it, the Freudian way of using that word, the uncanny or the ominous. So yeah, I've liked both of the stories that I've read thus far. They haven't really struck me as perfect short stories. I personally believe that a good short story should be the best thing ever. It should be perfectly rounded. It should be complete. It should be just a gemstone, a diamond. And so far, I think both stories that I've read are pretty solid, but they haven't been diamonds, you know? For example, if I think of some of my favorite short story collections, which, you know, that list now includes Rejection, but also George Saunders, my favorite short story author ever. All of his stories are perfect diamonds. Like, there's not a single one of them that is not an amazing, amazing showstopper. And not just show-stopping, like, wow, spectacular in terms of the effect, but just the writing, the quality of the writing. And here with this one, The Dangers of Smoking in Bed, I feel like I don't get that feeling just quite yet. But that's not to say that the book itself is not great. It is great so far. So I will be telling you more about that book in the next video. So anyway, thanks for watching. I am just one reader, and let me know if you have any recommendations or if you have any opinions on the books that I mentioned today. I will see you on the next video. Bye-bye.